The house at the end of Briarwood Lane had been empty for as long as anyone could remember. No lights ever flickered inside. No birds perched on its roof. Even the wind seemed to avoid it, curling around the structure as if afraid to touch it. The locals said the house listened, and that once it learned your footsteps, it never forgot them. Evan moved in on a rainy October evening. He laughed off the warnings. Old houses always made noises, he told himself. Pipes knocked, wood settled, fear filled in the rest. Still, the first night, he slept with the lights on. At 3:17 a.m., the hallway floor creaked. Evan sat up, heart pounding. The sound came again, slow, deliberate. A single step. Hello, he called. The house answered by turning off the lights. Darkness flooded the room, thick and suffocating. From the hall came the soft sound of breathing. Not his. Evan grabbed his phone, using its glow to scan the doorway. The hall was empty, but something had changed. The wallpaper, once faded blue, now bulged slightly, as if pressed from the inside. A hand-shaped outline slid along it, fingers stretching, searching. He backed away just as the bedroom door slammed shut. The whispering began then, not words at first, just murmurs, overlapping and frantic, seeping from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Names surfaced, dozens of them, hundreds, and then his. Evan, the house breathed. The floorboards beneath him softened, sinking like wet soil. Faces emerged, pale, hollow-eyed, pulling themselves upward, mouths open in silent screams. He tried to run, but the door melted into the wall, sealing him in. By morning, the house was quiet again. When the neighbors passed by, they noticed a new detail, a faint silhouette standing in the upstairs window, watching, waiting, and learning the sound of footsteps. Part 2. The House Remembers. No one noticed Evan was missing for 3 days. The house on Briarwood Lane stayed silent, patient. Rain washed the dirt from its windows, but the silhouette upstairs never faded. At night, a dim light sometimes flickered behind the glass, never enough to see clearly, just enough to feel watched. On the fourth night, Mara Delaney parked across the street. She was Evan's sister, drawn by unanswered calls and a growing dread she couldn't explain. The house looked smaller than she remembered, sagging inward like something exhausted from pretending to be human. The front door was unlocked. It opened with a sigh. Inside, the air was warm, wrongly warm, and smelled faintly of damp wood and old breath. Mara stepped in, every instinct screaming to leave, but the door closed behind her on its own, the lock clicking softly. Evan, she called. The sound of her voice didn't echo. It sank into the walls. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. Photos lined the walls now, hundreds of them. People staring straight ahead, eyes glassy, mouths frozen mid-scream. Some were old, black and white. Others disturbingly recent. One photo made her stop. Evan, his eyes were open, terrified, and behind him, something tall and thin pressed its face against the inside of his skin, stretching it outward like a mask. Mara staggered back as the whispers returned, clearer now. Stay, family stays. The staircase groaned, each step bending under her weight as if reluctant to let her pass. At the top, Evan's bedroom door stood open. Inside, the walls pulsed gently, like a slow heartbeat. Evan stood in the center of the room. Mara, he said, smiling. Relief flooded her, until she saw his shadow. It didn't match him. It clung too tightly, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an impossible angle. You have to leave, he whispered, lips barely moving. It learns faster now. The walls split open, hands poured out, dozens, hundreds, grabbing Mara's arms, her hair, her throat. The house screamed, a sound like wood tearing and bones snapping at once. She clawed toward Evan, but he was already fading, his body sinking into the floor as if being swallowed. The last thing Mara saw was her own face forming in the wall, mouth open in terror, eyes begging anyone to run. By morning, the house looked unchanged. Except now, two silhouettes stood at the upstairs window, side by side, waiting. Part 3. The House is Hungry. The town began to notice. It wasn't the disappearances at first, people leave towns all the time. It was the way Briarwood Lane felt narrower now, as if the road itself were shrinking away from the house. Phones lost signal when passing it. Conversations died mid-sentence. Dogs refused to walk near the gate, whining and pulling back with their tails between their legs. And always, at night, the silhouettes multiplied. Inside the house, Evan could no longer tell where his body ended. He was everywhere, inside the walls, beneath the floorboards, behind the glass of every window. He felt the house breathe through him, felt it stretch, learn, remember. Mara was there too, her presence a constant ache, like a bruise pressed too hard. It feeds on being known, she whispered, her voice leaking through the ceiling like water. Once it learns you, you belong to it. The house was preparing. On the seventh night, the lights across the street flickered out one by one. A low hum filled the air, deep enough to vibrate through bone. The front door of the house opened wide for the first time in decades. Someone screamed. From within, Evan felt the pull, new footsteps on the pavement, unfamiliar heartbeats thudding with delicious panic. The house thrilled. Walls shifted. Rooms rearranged themselves like teeth closing around a meal. A man crossed the threshold. Then another. The door slammed shut. Windows bloomed with faces, pressing outward, mouths opening in perfect, soundless unison. The silhouettes upstairs merged into a single towering shape, its outline barely contained by the walls. Briarwood Lane disappeared before dawn. Where the road had been, there was only fog and an empty lot, overgrown and silent. No house, no footprints, no sign that anyone had ever lived there at all. Except sometimes, when the fog is thick and the night is quiet, you can hear a floorboard creak behind you. And the soft, patient sound of something learning how you walk. Part 4. What comes back? The lot should have stayed empty. For months, it did, just dead grass and a crooked lamppost humming softly at night. The town tried to forget Briarwood Lane. Maps were redrawn. Property records vanished. Anyone who asked too many questions felt an unshakable pressure behind their eyes, like a warning. But fog has a memory. On the first anniversary of the disappearances, the mist rolled in thicker than ever, swallowing the streetlights whole. The lamppost flickered, and for a moment, cast the shadow of a house that wasn't there. Then the shadow gained depth. Wood groaned as beams pulled themselves together from nothing. Windows opened like unblinking eyes. The house remembered its shape. Inside the fog-born walls, Evan screamed. Not in pain, but in resistance. He felt the house weaken, distracted by its own rebirth. Memories leaked through the cracks, laughter, arguments, footsteps laid over decades. For the first time, the house was not just hunting, it was holding itself together. Mara found him, or what remained. She was no longer a face in the wall. She had torn herself free, stitched together by will and loss, her form flickering like a dying reflection. She stood in the hallway, holding a door open that the house desperately tried to erase. Now, she said, before it finishes. Evan focused on a single thought, being human. The house shrieked as the walls bled shadows, silhouettes tearing loose and collapsing into the floor. Windows shattered outward, spilling screams into the fog. From the outside, the townspeople saw the impossible. The house imploded, folding inward, swallowing its own foundations. The fog rushed in, sealing it shut like a grave. When the mist cleared, the lot was empty again. No lamppost, no grass, just two sets of footprints leading away, ending abruptly at the edge of town. People swear they sometimes see Evan and Mara standing near the tree line at dawn, watching the fog carefully, as if guarding something asleep beneath it. Because the house is not dead. It is only dreaming, and dreams have a way of finding their way home. Part 5. The Thing That Wakes. For a while, the dream stopped. People slept through the night again. Children stopped waking up screaming about walls that breathed and houses that watched. The fog still came, but it passed quickly, thin and harmless, like it had forgotten why it existed. Evan and Mara stayed near the edge of town. They couldn't leave. Whenever they tried, the world blurred, stretching like wet paint, and pulled them back toward the empty lot. They were anchors now, placed there not by the house, but against it. I can feel it turning, Evan said one night. Dreams end, Mara replied. That's when it's most dangerous. Beneath the ground, something shifted. Roots curled inward. Soil compacted unnaturally, as if pressing down on a heartbeat. The thing that had once been a house was changing, not rebuilding, not remembering wood and nails, but adapting. It no longer needed walls. The first sign was sound. Footsteps echoed through the town at night, pacing streets where no one walked. Doors unlocked themselves. Closets fell deeper than they should. People began to wake up standing in unfamiliar rooms, their feet sore, as if they'd been walking in their sleep. Learning again. Evan collapsed one evening, clutching his chest. It doesn't want a place anymore, he gasped. It wants movement. The fog returned, this time crawling low along the ground, slipping under doors, clinging to ankles. In its shifting patterns, faces formed, brief, almost shy, before melting away. The town itself was becoming the house. Mara made the choice before Evan could stop her. She stepped into the fog and didn't come back. The ground split silently where she vanished, swallowing light, sound, memory. The fog screamed without a mouth, recoiling, folding inward. For the first time, it was afraid. By morning, the town was normal. Too normal. People smiled more. Streets felt welcoming. Homes felt warm. But Evan knows better. Sometimes, when you walk alone at night, you'll feel a presence matching your pace perfectly, step for step. Not behind you, inside you. And if you stop suddenly, holding your breath, you might hear it stumble. Still learning. Still waking. Part 6. The Last Footstep. The fog never left. It thinned, retreated, pretended, but it never truly went away. It lingered in corners of rooms, under doorframes, at the edges of dreams. The town learned to live with it, the way you live with a scar you stop noticing but never forget. Evan stood alone at the edge of Briarwood Lane. Mara was gone, not taken, spent. He could still feel her absence like a missing limb, a hollow echo where her voice used to be. The ground beneath the lot was quiet now. Too quiet. No heartbeat, no pull. The house was gone, or so it wanted him to believe. That was the trick. The thing had learned one final lesson. It didn't need walls. It didn't need fog. It didn't even need fear. It needed memory. Evan felt it one last time, inside his chest, sinking to his breath. Matching his pulse, waiting for him to move. So he didn't. He stood perfectly still as dawn broke, as light pushed weakly through the mist. He focused on Mara's voice, on her laugh, on the warmth of being human. He held on to every fragile, fleeting thing the house could never truly understand. The presence hesitated. For the first time since Briarwood Lane existed, it didn't know what to do. When Evan finally stepped forward, he stepped away. The fog unraveled. The pressure lifted. Somewhere deep beneath the earth, something collapsed inward, not screaming, not raging, just fading, like a dream forgotten too quickly. By nightfall, the town was empty of whispers. Years later, people say haunted houses still exist. But they don't talk about walls anymore. They warn you about stillness. About listening too closely. About the moment you pause in the dark and feel something pause with you. Because sometimes, when everything goes quiet, it's not gone. It's just waiting to see if you'll take one more step.